Hello, everybody. Oops, we're on. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We have some exciting information to pass on to you today, and I'm super excited that eAssist has decided to join with Benco and bring you this presentation. Before we get started, I just want to go over a little bit about the CE rules so that we make sure that you know them. Number one is that in order to be able to see this, in order to be able to receive the CEs, you must log in on your own computer. So if you have two people watching it on the same computer and logged under one name, please make sure that you go log in under your own computer because everything's going to be timestamps. So we need to make sure that you were on for the complete hour. That's number one. Number two, also make sure that when you registered in the name that your license is held in. If you didn't do that, let us know and we'll make sure that when we send your CEs out, we put the correct name on there. So again, if your nickname is Bill, but Will's on I can't say it. Will's on your license, just make sure that you register under William and not Bill. That's going to be super important. And then also the CEs are going to be out in about 30 days. So if you don't get it right away, don't worry, it's coming. It's going to take about 30 days to receive it. If you have any questions during the seminar, there's a place on the bottom where questions and answers. We have Sarah from eAssist. She's going to be handling those for us, and we will take breaks during the series to make sure that we answer all of those questions. And then I think that was it. So, oh, and then also it will be recorded, but this is the only time you can receive the CEs is on the live recording. So with that being said, I would like to take the opportunity to turn this over to the person that I get to call leader and boss, who I absolutely love and adore, who's handled this probably the most professional way anyone can. I'm so proud of him and everything he's done, and his team and the family. So Chuck Cohen is the managing director of Benco Dental, and he would like to be able to open this up. So go ahead, Chuck.
Well, Kay, thank you very much. I am flattered. I love it when Kay gives me introductions because she says such nice things. I only hope that they're true and that I can live up to them. And one thing I would mention is that we all know at Benco, we all work for Kay when it's all said and done. She is truly a force of nature, and we're proud to have her on our team. So the last few weeks have been interesting and difficult and challenging, and I think we've all been dealing with that. Dentistry has basically been closed down. So at Benco, we've decided to pursue a webinar strategy to stay in close touch with our customers and help everyone get through the next few weeks together. We are very pleased today to have the folks from eAssist on who are going to help illuminate the SBA program that was passed as part of the CARES program. When we get into trouble as a society, whether it's a flood or a natural disaster or some sort of unforeseen circumstance, the federal government oftentimes steps in to provide assistance. Certainly the COVID-19 situation qualifies as a natural disaster that no one expected. So it's not a big surprise that the federal government has passed a $2 trillion stimulus package in order to help us all through. The first thing on the list is helping small businesses like dental practices stay on their feet and recover quickly when the economy improves and when the health crisis passes. So the folks from eAssist have been gracious in learning everything there is to know about the new program. They're going to share with you how to apply for the loan that's the right one for you and how to make sure your practice survives today and thrives in the future. With that, I'm happy to turn things over to James Anderson from eAssist and his team. And if you have any questions, you post them to the Q&A portion on the bottom of your screen, and we're looking forward to educating everyone. James?
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Kay. Thanks for having us here. We're grateful to be your audience, to be invited to come and help your audience understand 4 things. We hope that by the time you're done with this hour, you have an in-depth understanding of the Small Business Administration SBA loan options that are now available to you. We also hope that you know how these 2 new acts that have passed recently, the Family Leave Act and the benefit your employees so you can communicate some hope to them as well. We also want to give you ideas and guidance as practicing dentists. We'll talk about that in a moment, how to manage your employees the best way during this time when your office is closed. And also we hope that we inspire you to create a thoughtful action plan that you can implement today. Who are we? Well, I'm a dentist. I'm a practicing dentist. I'm also the CEO and founder of eAssist Dental Solutions. I built 9 dental practices. I am the co-chair of the Roseman Dental School MBA Advisory Board. I'm also an associate professor at the Roseman Dental School MBA program. I'm a Harvard HBS alum BS in finance from BYU, and a DMD from Oregon Health and Sciences University back in the day.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Anderson. It's a pleasure to be participating today. I'm a business lawyer with about 17 years experience. I graduated from Willamette University with a law degree and an MBA, formerly a partner at a Salt Lake City, Utah law firm, formed my own firm back in 2012, and joined eAssist full-time as in-house counsel about a year ago.
And hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Borg. Along with working with eAssist, I've been practicing dentistry for 14 years. We've started 3 dental offices, and currently right now my biggest thing is trying to survive this as a dentist just like the rest of you.
We represent eAssist. We're America's #1 dental billing service provider. About 10 years ago, we formed the firm, and back when no one was doing it. And we have 800 team members strong now. We're serving thousands of dentists over the country. You can see all the awards that we won there. Our core purpose is to deliver peace of mind. Some have asked, why is a dental billing company teaching dentists how to apply for the CARES Acts the loans, the SBA loans that are modified in the CARES Act? Why are we doing this now for you? It's because our purpose is to deliver peace of mind. Everything we do is associated around that. And as practicing dentists, Brian, when you and I, when we woke up on the 15th of March, and a couple days later, we weren't allowed to practice dentistry anymore, I didn't have a lot of peace of mind. I think you and I both had some sleepless nights. I think I've lost about 17 pounds over the last 10 days.
I put it all back on being in quarantine, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know. We hope that by the time we're done, you have a little more peace of mind. Remember, we're dentists helping dentists. Taylor, what's the rest of this?
As the resident lawyer, this next part falls to me. While we're definitely excited to share with you all that we've learned over the past week or so, of course, we're not giving you specific tax or legal advice. There's more detail coming. There's change that happened yesterday from government regulators that we're going to talk more about today. There may be changes to the laws in the future. Of course, you should work with your professional advisors to understand what's best in your situation. That said, though, let's get started because, again, we're excited to share what we've learned. We're going to spend a lot of our time today talking about the SBA financing options that have been made available through the CARES Act. But before we do that, we want to touch on some other ways that can help dentists free up some cash and help them with the financial crisis caused by the virus right now. So, basically the CARES Act is the government's trying to pump as much money as quickly as possible back into small businesses' hands and big businesses, but we're only talking about the small business component today. They're also in other ways trying to get money back into individuals' hands. They're trying to encourage all of us, incentivize us to jumpstart the economy, open back up, just as soon as we can. And so, these are some of the ways that happens. They've created a new type of SBA loan. We're going to talk more about that. They've also made it easier to get money under 2 other types of SBA loans. Other things you can do as a dentist if you need to. You can draw up to $100,000 from your 401k. You can also stop paying on your current SBA loans for 6 months. You can stop payments on your federal student loans. You can request forbearance if you have a federally backed mortgage. You can also delay paying federal income tax for a few months. You can defer payment of the employer share of Social Security tax, and there's some other potential tax-related savings there that you'll see on the slide. James is going to give us an overview of the SBA loan program. I just want to note really quickly before he does that, again, our focus today are on these recent laws, and so we're talking about SBA loans. But a reminder, there are other state and local funds and loans and even foundations that are offering loans, some of them specifically for dentists. And on our web page, we actually have a map where you can click on your state and all sorts of information, including that kind of information, comes up.
Well, we've become a pseudo SBA loan experts, and Brian and I were talking. How many times, Brian, have we gone to a bank and they tried to talk you out of doing the SBA loan route? Oh, it's too expensive. It takes too long.
Never again.
Never again. You know why? Because the 504 loans, those loans there, if you have one right now on real estate, you're getting a phone call or an email right now from an SBA agent saying, Merry Christmas. For the next 6 months, you do not have to pay any principal or any interest. And guess what? We're paying it for you. We're not just deferring it, but we're paying it for you for the 504 loan. That was modified in the CARES Act. Now, the two most important categories, there are 6 types of SBA loans. You can see them listed here. But the two we're most concerned about that were modified in the CARES Act that we're going to discuss that have loans that apply to dentists are the 7A loans. And they're actually 9, well, they're 10 now, but there were 9 different subcategories of the SBA loan category. We won't go into details of what those all are, but one of those was brand new, called the PPP, just created last Friday when the CARES Act passed. Another type of loan, the disaster loan, there's groups of those, but the one that was modified that we're concerned about is the economic injury disaster loan, or EIDL for short. So the 3 loans that you can apply for as a dentist right now that have been modified to really help you get back on your feet are, in summary, the EIDL loan, the SBA 7A Express loan, and the SBA 7A Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP for short. So which of these 3 loans are right for you and your practice? Taylor, would you mind talking about these? What's the EIDL loan all about?
No problem. Again, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, you apply online directly with the SBA on this one. They've expanded the eligibility. Basically 500 employees or less, small businesses, sole proprietors, independent contractors can also participate. You must have been operating as of January 31, up to a potential loan amount of $2 million. Interest rate, last we read, is 3.75%. Use of proceeds, again, you see the list there. It's intended to help you with expenses and bills that you can't pay because of this economic, the virus disaster that's caused, this economic injury. And the part of what the recent legislation did was declare that for all 50 states, there's a disaster that qualifies and triggers this kind of law. One of the things to remember here for the EIDL is it can be a term of up to 30 years.
That's the longest out of all. That could really be beneficial for many. It's not interest-free, it's not forgiven, but there is a small forgiven component here if it's still available. It might be gone by now. Taylor, tell us more about this.
Yeah, you bet. There's one of the things that's unique about this loan under the recent legislation is there's a $10,000 advance or grant that you don't have to repay. You online through their online system, you can mark the box and indicate, yes, I'd like to receive that. If we imagine, because of limited funds and because it's been, I think since last Sunday, if I remember right, that it became available online, we assume that that's depleted now or will be based on the applications that are in. We don't know for sure, but again, there's limited funds there. Otherwise, the turnaround time for this loan is longer than the other ones we're going to talk about today. More like 3 to 6 months usually. Maybe they'll do it faster here.
We've all applied for that. Did you get your 10K grant, Brian?
I just checked and it hasn't come through yet.
No, I didn't see. I haven't gotten an email from the guys.
No.
It's supposed to turn around in 3 days.
No one I know has received anything. So
nothing. But who knows? You can still apply and try to get it. Maybe not though. Now that the PPP is launched, we'll talk about that in a moment. The SBA 7A Express loan. So Taylor, tell us about this loan. It's been modified. It's been around forever, or for a long, long time. But what did the CARES Act do to it, and why should dentists care about it?
The only thing the CARES Act did to it, to my knowledge, is they increased the maximum loan amount from $350,000 to $1 million. And that's, one of the main reasons we're talking about it. The other couple of differentiating points and that reasons why dentists should consider it are these: use of proceeds, not just working capital, but for things like purchasing real estate, acquiring a business, equipment, and things like that. So it's more broad than some of these other kind of emergency type loans that have been created or expanded. Also, turnaround time on 7A Express loan is supposed to be very fast, like 36 hours.
That's fast. So you could use this to actually buy real estate or buy another dental office or something like this, right?
Right.
Interesting. Okay, the brand new one, the one we're all here for, the new 7A loan. Now there's 10 of them. The Paycheck Protection Program loan, the PPP. Tell us this.
Yeah, this one's very unique,
Taylor.
And one of the main ones that everyone's focused on, and understandably so. You don't apply through the SBA, you apply through a lender, or you could use a broker like lendio.com. Again, very broad group of companies and individuals that could apply. Smaller companies, 500
Let me stop you right there, Taylor. You can apply from your local bank. that you bank at. They're most likely an approved.
That's right.
Lender, right? So you can just go down to your bank or find out what their process is, or you can use an online broker.
Yeah.
And the one that we recommend is Lendio, but there's a bunch of them. But most of the quickest way is probably just to go to your bank.
Yeah. Yeah, and just not through the SBA, which is where the EIDL loan happens, right? So that's one difference. It has to be an SBA approved lender, and if they're not SBA approved, the legislation allows that pool of lenders to be broadened, so there'll be even more. You have to have been operating on February 15th and this year and have paid employees or contractors. Again, a very low threshold. Okay, so maximum amount of the loan. Again, here's some unique components of the PPP: 2.5 times the borrower's average monthly payroll cost for the past 12 months. And you can see there on our slide the kind of things that, with some exceptions, they're including in payroll cost, of course, wages. That's definitely for employees. There's a question now whether or not that applies to independent contractors, and we're going to talk more about that. In either case, only up to $100,000 annual compensation each. And then related costs there. Interest rates currently set at 1%. We found that out yesterday. The CARES Act allows for maximum of 4%. Use of proceeds, payroll costs again, and then other, a group of bills, mortgage payment, rent, utilities, things that were in place before February 15th, that you need help paying. And then the term, again, the Act allows for 10 years. But we found out recently from the SBA, they're currently setting it at 2 years, so much lower than the maximum, thinking that will accomplish the purposes of the Act. No personal guarantee or collateral. Again, they're trying to make this really easy. And we're told once you get, in the queue or start being processed, it's supposed to be a fast turnaround, maybe 2 weeks. There will be deferment, no payments for 6 months, up to 1 year. But again, I think I read indicating they're targeting 6 months at this point. And then a really unique component of this loan that can turn into really a grant, there's a forgiveness component.
Well, the interest rate,
we'll talk about.
Taylor, you said that the interest rate you found out yesterday, well, it's more than just finding out. At first it was 4%, then it was dropped to 0.5, and then it was yesterday it was set to 1 during the press conference that they gave. It's all over the place. I bring that out because this is a brand new law, super fast. Government doesn't work this fast. Lawyers usually don't work this fast, right? And now they're switching stuff and they're moving stuff, and more things may change too. But now that the PPP is supposed to have gone live today, most likely it's locked down, but we need some more clarification on a few things, including whether or not we should include independent contractors in your pay cost expense. Now, our understanding is the ADA, Adam Schiff and others, and many other accountants, including when we read the bill, what we looked at, it makes it very clear in the CARES Act that contractors, independent contractors, are a part of your payroll cost calculations. And this is actually from yesterday's final guidance from the Treasury Department, this paragraph here, determining whether or not you're eligible. It says you are if you had a business before February 15th and you paid salaries or you paid a contractor and reported a 1099 to that person. So if you can't include contractors, then why is this something that would make you eligible if you never even had any payroll? Another thing, it also says this: how do I calculate the maximum amount that I can borrow? And it actually has a couple little scenarios, and it says here, look at step 2 or step 1, aggregate your payroll costs, and it defines them all in another section. Then subtract any compensation you paid an employee in excess of 100,000, because as Taylor mentioned, anything above 100,000 isn't included, and or anything that you paid to an independent contractor in excess of 100,000. So if contractors weren't supposed to be a part of the payroll calculation, then why did they say in the example to tell you how to calculate that if it's over 100,000 for a contractor, you got to exclude the over 100,000 part? It's confusing, right? You'd think that and go, okay, that's easy. But if you look a little closer, and then they modified some language here from the bill, and they included "and" for independent contractor. And some people are interpreting that it's supposed to be a period there and a separate section. For independent contractors, you would have this. For everyone else, you would have that. But other lenders are looking at it differently. Then there's this section here that says you cannot count your contractors as employees for purposes of the PPP loan calculations. No, you can't do that. So now you're starting to introduce an idea that, well, maybe you can't introduce, but part of the PPP loan calculation is how many employees you have when you get your loan. It asks for that question. So one way to interpret this is, well, you're not supposed to count independent contractors as employees, because the way you're supposed to be forgiven in the next slide, based on how many employees you have when you're done, that's how you're forgiven. So the question is asked in the same guidance form that I took these other three quotes from. Do independent contractors count as employees for purposes of the PP loan forgiveness? It doesn't say, do they count as payroll cost? It says employees, and that's a different section. It's all over the place, right, Taylor? I mean, what if, and including, remember that as of yesterday, a brand new rule that if you had employees, for every employee you kept, you got a $5,000 tax credit. So it'd make a lot of sense that your contractors don't count as employees, because you would be getting $5,000 a tax credit for those guys. But it's being interpreted by some lenders that contractors can't be included in your pay. And in other lenders, they're saying the opposite, that you can. It really is a mess, Tay. You've looked at the law boards. Taylor, I know lawyers were going back and forth on this. What have you discovered, and what's our recommendation?
Well, there are many people that are surprised by the SBA's interim rule that came out yesterday. And yeah, some of the frustrating parts of it are, and that leads to confusion, is they cite to a couple spots of the CARES Act, but then not others. And then it's kind of a summary, and then they pose some questions and then provide responses, which may or may not really answer, completely the question. And so it leaves you wondering, right? So again, there are many who have said the CARES Act seems to say, yes, you can include contractors in payroll costs. And that definition is crucial because it applies to the important calculations you're doing under the PPP loan. But then yesterday, the SBA seems to be in this rule saying no, or at least some are interpreting it that way. I anticipate that we will hear more on this issue. Could be from lawmakers, could be from the SBA. Our practical recommendation for you dentists right now is remember that your lenders are really the practical gatekeepers. They're having to figure this out so that they know what information to gather and know what to tell you. So lean on them and talk with them about what they think and what they're doing. Make sure you understand their approach.
James, as I sit and listen, as I sit and listen to you guys talk, first of all, James, you're almost as good a lawyer as you are as a dentist.
Open wide.
You have me convinced for sure. I do think it's going to fall into the lender's hands as far as which way we're going to go. But just practically speaking, from a dental side, someone that's just trying to run his dental practice, I have one employee that I pay as an independent contractor. So it doesn't really weigh heavily on my mind that I'm going to have to get this through in order for me to really want this loan. So I think for those that are out there listening and saying, well, there's a whole bunch of mess there with the independent contractors that really apply to me. Well, probably in most cases, a lot of dentists, it doesn't apply because they pay their employees through W-2s. They pay themselves for W-2s. But it does apply if you have a lot of independent contractors that you pay with the 1099. So if you fall in that line where, well, this doesn't really apply to me, then I wouldn't worry about it. Proceed and go with the lender. And if not, and you want to push the issue, then hopefully it gets ironed out over the next week or two.
Yeah, like I said, we found different lenders who've said no and others have said yes. Because in the end, the lender, the way the system works, has to loan you the money first. So they have to be comfortable that the SBA administration is going to give them their money back that they just gave you. And so if they feel comfortable with this and that's part of the plan and the SBA does too, and they get it, then they're happy. If not, then they won't. So until they get more guidance, we're kind of in the air a little bit, and like what Taylor said, that's our recommendation. So Brian, let's put that aside. Now let's talk about how does the loan forgiveness feature work for the PPP? Or Taylor, let's have you do this one.
I'll take it.
Take it.
So very unique component of this PPP, which can help it again turn almost into a grant really. You calculate the amount that you can be forgiven under the loan by looking at what you spend during the 8 weeks after you receive the money or the loan origination date for these kind of things. Payroll, again, one of the questions is that just employees, or can that be considered independent contractor pay? That's why we've got the question marks there. Up to $100,000 a year, what does that equate to? Again, $8,333 per month, for those workers. Group health benefits, rent, mortgage, utilities. So those things during that 8-week period can be forgiven. Also can't exceed the original loan amount, and some new guidance. It's anticipated that no more than 25% of the forgiveness amount will be for non-payroll expenses.
Yeah, that came 2 days ago, didn't it?
Yeah, just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Again, it's meant again, paycheck protection program loan. So
yeah, and it's excluded from your taxable income, whatever is forgiven. That's a nice thing.
Yep.
Okay, there's some more details here. What does this say?
So there's a potential for that forgiveness amount after you calculate it to be reduced, and we have some details here. We won't go over all of them, but if you've, if you reduced your full-time employees, a monthly average during that 8-week period compared to a prior period, under the law, and you get to choose those. Most people will choose February to June of last year, most likely. Your forgiveness amount can be reduced by that percentage decrease. So again, the government's encouraging you, get your office back to at least where it was. Bring the people back, open your doors, and we'll cover the cost during this 8-week period. Another potential reduction, if you reduce any employee's total wages during this 8-week period by more than 25%, then it will be, the forgiveness amount will be reduced basically dollar for dollar by that same amount. Again, important thing to remember, this reduction doesn't count for reductions of workers that were making over 100,000 a year. So important to remember though, that the government recognizes that all sorts of things have happened and you may have let people go and so forth. So if you rehire them at the same pay rates by June 30th, most employees, you won't be penalized. Again, the encouragement is get back open, full throttle, and the government will cover the costs.
Hire them back, Brian. Hire them all back.
They're coming.
Yeah, you never let anybody off. You furloughed.
No. We're figuring that out still.
And then you can read about the $100,000. Anything above that is used, is wiped out. You can only spend up to our average in $8,333 per month for those kinds of folks. And we're going to talk about the Family First Paid Leave Act. You can't include those either. We're going to talk about that right now. Brian, what is a practical example of how this fits? How Dennis would think about this?
What we've been going over as I've been watching has probably been really interesting to some lawyers and real interesting to CPAs, but how does it really affect, a regular doctor that's just trying to figure this out? So what we thought we would do is just kind of throw some pseudo numbers up here, just so you can get an idea of what you can expect from a loan that's going to help you out over the next couple months. We put together just this, you can see the numbers there. They're arbitrary. Some of your numbers may be more than that, some are less, but you can kind of get an idea. We just put payroll expense, and that's our assistants, our front desk, our hygienists, and our office managers. And then we put that as a $31,500. And then we included ourselves. If we've been paying ourselves as a W-2, that should be no problem. There's not going to be any questions. If you paid yourself as an independent, well, we've talked about that. There's a question there, but that we'll have to solve. And then if you have an associate doctor, so we put those on there. If you pay those by W-2, you can see that it's been capped at $833. That's some of the CPA talk and the lawyer talk that we saw on the previous page. So we have a total payroll of $48,000, and that's per month. Dentists usually seem to think on accounting per month, and that's $48,166. So the way you get your loan amount is that you would just times that by 2.5, and that in our situation gives us $120,000. Now there is a little caveat there that if you do the math, it seems to make sense, but you can estimate how much money you'll have outside of payroll. And that is, payroll should take 75% of that loan money that you're going to use in that 8-week period. There's going to be, if you use it right, there'll be 25% left from that, just because we're dealing with a 10-week loan and only using 8 weeks. So this little estimate gives you a little bit of an idea. You can see in our situation, we're left with about $30,000. Now, what can you use that for? You can use it for rent. You can use it for mortgage interest. You can use it for utilities. And we actually have designed, and a lot of dentists have called me and asked me, and we've talked amongst friends and said, well, what is this loan going to do for me? I mean, I'm shut down for 2 months, and how much am I going to get? And so we actually put together a little calculator on our website, and James is actually going to walk us through it. He'll give you a little bit of example how to use it. But the purpose for it is that so you can maybe start to plan, okay, this is what I'm going to be able to do, and will I be able to cover my rent with the extra funds that will be left over after payroll?
Hey, Brian, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. I think we're going to pass just because of time. on the demonstration of this. Instead, go to dentalbilling.com/PPP calculator. And I think you have to keep the PPPs capitalized. And you can play with that and put in some numbers, and you'll see exactly what you should put on your form that you fill out. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So the bottom line is, now that you understand these three different types of loans, what loan is right for you? Well, you may be a couple of them. And let us explain. Our recommendation is for most dentists, apply immediately for the PPP loan today. I know there are some CPAs who are saying, hold on, you want to take your time because it kicks in as soon as you get your loan. And that's probably true. Maybe it won't be. When Marco Rubio originally wrote this on his website, he actually said that the idea was you could pick the date it would start. We're not sure if that got in. The SBA will do some more guidance. But we do know these funds are limited. There's $350 billion, and I know the Secretary of the Treasury was on yesterday, and he was saying, when we run out, we're going to go back to Congress and ask for some more. But what if Congress fights about it and doesn't want to open up more of it? And I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to have it. And we're assuming that it's going to take a couple weeks and maybe a month to get this going. And then they'll say there'll be a 24-hour turnaround as soon as they get it. We don't know for sure, Brian, but this is what we came up with, following the guidance of the Treasury and others, that you want to make sure you get it.
Yeah, it's too big of a risk to leave it on the table over, maybe trying to strategically save $8,000 or $10,000. The other thing that I would add to that, James, is that I actually personally applied this morning with Chase Bank, and I was under the assumption that I would be able to apply and it would say you're approved and you're ready to go. And you've heard these rumors that the secretary yesterday said you have it in 24 hours. Well, I did that. I applied it, and all that it did is say, okay, Chase Bank representative will contact you. So I'm assuming I'm going to be put into a queue now, and it may take 2 or 3 more weeks before we even get rolling on this.
I've been trying to apply too. My banks keep saying our online portal isn't ready yet. Check back in a few hours. So I haven't been able to apply either. As soon as we're done, I'm hitting the zionsbank.com.
The point is if you go online today and hit apply, that doesn't mean like, okay, the clock's going to start right now. You still have to go through the process of getting with that banker.
Now, this PPP is a smaller loan. We went through the math. We saw that. But if you need a larger loan, or you need something that lasts a lot longer to get you by, to ensure you can survive this, then the EIDL loan's for you. Because we think the 10K grant's already used up, there's no really incentive to apply for that right now for that purpose. But you do for that. But there's a caveat here. We'll talk about that in a moment. If you want to buy real estate, you can see it there, or another business, then the 7A Express loan is right for you. Taylor, there's something though, I mentioned these things, but you can't apply for both of these loans for the same what?
Well, you can't receive, an EIDL and a PPP if they're for the same purpose.
But you can apply for them, you just can't receive them both.
Yeah, from what I've seen, right? I mean, they pay attention to what certifications your lender's asking you to make, of course. But yeah, in the end, like, no double dipping, right? No 2 SBA loans for the same purpose. So it is possible, if you do have an EIDL already, because now we're at the cutoff because the PPP is available, you can roll it in. The CARES Act talks about that opportunity. You can roll it into your PPP, basically a refi. And if you did receive that $10,000 advance, if you were one of the lucky ones, then that'll reduce the forgivable amount under your PPP loan. So again, if you have more than one SBA loan, they have to be for different purposes, and you can only apply for one PPP loan.
So at this point now, we're saying just pick one of them. If it's for economic hardship and you need working capital to pay your people, either apply for the EIDL or apply for the PPP, because April 3rd is today. It's upon us. There's no more, this PPP isn't available yet. It's available now. So be strategic in how you decide. And we hope that after this presentation, you've made a decision, and then go ahead and do it if you haven't already. So how do you apply for these loans, and what information do you need? We'll quickly go over this. You can go to dentalbilling.com, and we have a list of things that break this down, and we even will help you apply if you call 1-844-EASSIST. We're happy to serve you in that way, no charge. Just want you to have peace of mind. There's a link there that links right to the SBA 7A Express loans, not the EIDL loan, but the 7A Express loans. You apply through your local bank if they're an SBA lender, or online with a broker. When can you apply for the 7A PPP loan? Today, if you are a small business or a sole proprietor, If you're an independent contractor or self-employed, most dentists are self-employed, but we have small businesses set up around that, right? But if you're an Uber driver or something, part of the gig economy, then you can apply for the PPP starting April 10th. That's the latest guidance that we received. How to apply for the express loan? How do you apply for the PPP loan? Same thing, through the local bank or through the online. Do not delay applying. Like we said earlier, the funds are limited. Here's an example of the form. This is the newest form. I think this is version 4. It was different than what was on their website yesterday, brand new. It includes the EIDL 10K advance up on top, but it just asks for a number of employees, nothing else. It doesn't ask you to attach anything, doesn't ask you to submit anything. It doesn't ask you to certify some stuff, but your lender then has different requirements. I looked at 2 different banks for the 2 practices that I'm working with on this, that are mine, and one of them doesn't ask me to apply anything. The other one wants me to put all this stuff in, including your most recent Form 941 employer quarterly federal tax returns. So I think you just need to talk to your lender, which pick an SBA lender, find out what they want, go to their website now, prepare it, including your monthly payroll for the past 12 months, including all the wages we discussed, everything else. Ask them specifically, will you allow me to pay for contractors, to put contractors as part of my payroll cost? If they say no, then you leave it out. If they say yes, then you give them whatever documentation they need to show that you gave 1099s to those folks. Payments to independent. So again, then make it clear you can't pay foreign people that aren't citizens of the United States. You also can't include that in the payroll cost. You can't include any foreign contractors either, if you have any. So, Brian, what's this?
Okay, so going along with the theme of, well, what is all our friends in the dental world planning on doing? So there's 3 different loans. We've talked about the 7A Express, the PPP loan, or the EIDL loan. And then you can see at the bottom, most of our associates, our colleagues, our friends, actually, when we polled them, and this is a poll of over 1,200 dentists or 1,100 dentists, most of them said that the loan they're most interested in is the PPP loan, but they also tried to use the EIDL advance with the PPP loan. And we talked about how you can capture both of those. We also kind of mentioned that game may be over at this point. Just from my perspective, if it were me and I hadn't already applied for the EIDL, I would probably leave that alone and just try to go with the PPP loan, because that money, you don't get more money that way. You just get it at a different time period. It's not like you're losing out on $10,000 if you don't get it when it's all said and done.
Yeah, good point. If you do get the EIDL loan, that EIDL loan 10K grant advance, if you applied for it early enough, because there's only a $10 billion fund that gets used, exhausted. So the first million entities that get it will get it. It does come off of your PPP if you go and get a PPP, and is written off as part of your forgivable amount. So it's not an extra, you don't get an extra 10K if you're able to accomplish both. But you and I, we were right on it. That went live like Sunday at 8, and we didn't get it. So
yeah.
Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, Brian, do you want to lead the Q&A here?
So yeah, we wanted to pose some questions with specificity to which loans we should apply to. So Sarah, you've got some questions that you've been taking throughout the seminars, and you'd like to throw them out the panel. That'd be great.
Absolutely. We have a couple that have been showing up a few times, so I'm going to start with those. We have a lot of questions about someone who may own their practice or work in their practice, but they don't draw a W-2 for their payment. They could be a sole proprietor or pay themselves through a 1099. How do they calculate that salary into the PPP loan so that they have compensation? Or can they?
It's a good question. Taylor, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so this goes to one of the issues we raised, right? That was raised by the SBA's rule yesterday. If they're paid as an employee, then I don't think there's a question. They can definitely be included in payroll costs and those calculations under the PPP. If they've been paying themselves as a contractor, well, that's why you ask your lender. Now, wait a minute, what can I include? You know, how are you, lender, setting this up? And until we get further guidance, that's really where that question about contractor expenses go to.
The one thing I would add, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, is that if you haven't been paying yourself a W-2 and you've just been taking distributions, it probably ought to fix that first. Second, you probably have the opportunity to fix it. The problem is you won't get a large enough loan or as large a loan because you can't retro fix it. You can't go back and change it, but you can change it going forward. So you can get the loan amount, which will be a smaller amount, and then you can pay yourself a W-2 and see if that, if the math works for you and get it forgiven. You may run out of funds because the loan's not big enough.
Great. Now, the next question we get, we've had a few of these come in as well. And we have people wondering how they're supposed to take the PPP loan when they draw funds, what we believe will be on the origination date is when their 8-week start. And the reality is that many of them can't practice. So what are they supposed to do with their teams during that time? What are they supposed to be doing in that time?
I know. We all have different opinions on this. I'll go first. Yesterday, a reporter asked the Secretary of Treasury that specific questions. If you're a restaurant owner and you get the PPP and you've been forced to close, why would you want to get it right now when you can't? And he said, well, he said, why would you want to get it right now? And just what the question was asking. And what the secretary said, well, so you can bring your workers back and it doesn't penalize you even though you can't be open. It was kind of a nonsense answer. Like he hadn't thought about that there are certain people like dentists that actually can't be open. Because this law is so fluid and we have seen change, we've done this presentation 3 times and it's different every single time with new guidance every single day. So I'm assuming there's going to be some more guidance coming down the pike. Who knows? I don't know. What we're trying to balance is, are you going to get the funds? If you're not first in line to raise your hand, I'm a law of abundance guy, but there's some scarcity here. And if you don't get in line in time, you might not get it. You can't hope that they're going to open up the tap some more for a second bite of the apple. If you're willing to take that risk, then hold, don't take it. Instead, wait until you open again and then see if you apply before June 30th to see if there's any money left over. But the secretary...
Sorry, let me ask you a question, a follow-up question with that, because with what the secretary said, he also mentioned that there would be some tax credits there. So is it, and I'm putting you on the spot because I haven't asked you this off this webinar, and Taylor, you can chime in on this, but you can use those tax credits. It's just a cash flow issue. You'll be credited back if you bring those employees back now. They did put that into the law that you would get some tax credits, but it would be not until next year that you can capitalize on those. Am I reading that correctly?
My understanding is it's $5,000 per person that you get as a credit, and they just said it ad hoc in the meeting, like that's what we're going to do. And I need to investigate it some more, Taylor. We all need to do that, but that's the thinking, and those that are watching should investigate too to see if that really is the case. But Brian, you're already getting the money because if the loan starts, if I apply today, you applied today, and I apply today, in 2 weeks from now, all of a sudden we get $100,000 in our account, and the clock starts right then. At that moment, I can't open, so I'm going to have less forgiven right now until I can open. And if I open before June 30th, what I can do to have it all forgiven is I bring them all in, I give them a bunch of bonuses, I give them a bunch of money, so that it's if they've been working this whole time, and the whole thing is forgiven up to 75% of whatever. And as long as by the end of the loan, as long as you have all of your employees, the same number of employees, I understand, and the same dollar amount that you used to be paying those folks over that 8-week period. If you paid them all that money back, then it's all forgiven. It's a total. It's not like a week by week snapshot. So one of the strategies we're doing is, if that happens, we won't open. We're still open for emergency services. I'll be giving bonuses to those folks that are helping me stay open during emergency services rather than taking unemployment. And that'll help compensate for that. And then when we're ready to open, hopefully in 2 months before June 30th, hopefully it's in 30 days. I think in Utah, it's April 26th, it may change. But at that point, we'll go and bring them all in and just pay a bunch of money. Now they made unemployment and they made a bunch of bonuses on top of that. It's not my money, it's the government's money. I got to give it back or keep it as a loan at 1% if I don't pay my employees. And so there's some decisions you can make there. And at that point, I would be the best boss in town. Like everyone would want to work for Lakeview Dental, right? That's one strategy.
James,
All right.
one caveat: the potential reduction, if your full-time workforce has changed, that it looks like it's a monthly average for the 2
A
months.
monthly average. Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Taylor.
Yeah.
So you'd have to hit that every month. Okay, good. That's a tough one, and I'm hoping that the ADA can lobby and they can make that change for dentists, because we were shut down by state governments.
And also a great question for your lender, right? As if you're a dentist, you got to understand this, because it works great if everyone in every industry that gets one of these does it all at the same time and we all reopen. But if you're barred from doing that, from the government, it's a problem.
Would you guys like one more question, or for time's sake, should we keep moving?
Let's move on.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll briefly talk a little bit about the Family First Act and how the CARES Act and that act benefit your employees. Brian, will you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so practically speaking, there's two issues here, or there's two laws that were passed that play a big role in this. The first is the Family First Act. That was the first one that came out, and it was dealt with the virus. Of course, we were concerned about people coming to work with the virus and spreading it. So Congress passed the law that, hey, we can't have employees in the workplace with this, and we're going to put it onto the employers to carry the note basically until they get a tax credit. But you would be required to pay 2/3 the benefits of the employees that had to go home due to the virus. So that put us in a little bit of a tough bind, because we have one employee show up, and then we have to replace them, and then we also have to carry the note and pay those other employees. But if you go to the next slide, it was somewhat fixed with the CARES Act. And this kind of deals with how they came in and said, okay, well, we're in trouble because we're having to close down dental offices, and now we're closed, and we have to make that decision on, well, do we keep the employees on and deal with the CARES Act and have to pay them while this is off, or do we go to an unemployment situation? And the CARES Act actually kind of helps us in this situation, because as you can see from the CARES Act, our employees, if we put them on unemployment, that would be furloughing or laying them off, they get increased. It's like unemployment supercharged. Some of the things are, you got $600 more a week. That's quite a bit. That's like working $15 or getting $15 an hour for a 40-day week, a 40-hour week. The other nice thing that this act did do for us is that it made it so you can have furloughed employees on unemployment, yet being worked in reduced hours. So for instance, if I furlough an employee, I can still bring her in or him in and still have them work, as long as that goes along with your state guidance, and that is state to state. So you'd have to strategically find out, well, how many hours can my furloughed employee work and still receive those unemployment benefits? And that's a little bit about the Family Care Act and the Family First Act.
Thanks, Brian. Let me just cover a couple more details. You mentioned the Families First Act and the paid leave that can be provided, and the details here. But just high level, there are some new paid leave requirements that could apply to dental practices. If an employee is directly affected by this virus and the related crisis, for example, if they're quarantined or experiencing symptoms and need to see a doctor, then they could get up to 2 weeks of paid time off at regular rate. If an employee is indirectly affected, for example, they need to care for someone that has an issue related to it's under quarantine, or care for a child because their school's closed, then they could still get 2 weeks, but it's at 2/3 their rate. Another piece of this legislation extends that leave if an employee is indirectly affected again because they need to care for a child, for example. And this is a big issue because schools all over the nation, are closed. And so they could extend that original 2-week leave to up to another 10 at 2/3 pay. There are some important things to note, rules about, well, this extended leave applies, you have to have been an employee for 30 days. But if you had been let go and then you were rehired, at least, for certain time periods, if you were let go after March 1, you for this 30-day test, you look back to the period before you let them go. So those are things to be aware of. But there's some good news for employers. There are some caps, you see that there. and dollar for dollar reimbursement by way of an advance employer side payroll tax credit. So the government's trying to get you the credit, trying to free up money in a different way for you to pay for this leave. A couple of other really important points on this new paid leave. Doesn't apply if your employee is currently laid off or furloughed. Also, there can be exemptions for smaller employers, fewer than 50 employees. I'm going to talk a little bit about that more in a minute. There's more information we think will be coming from the Department of Labor. And then healthcare providers may be excluded. Unfortunately, right now, the definition of that, or the guidance we're getting, it says doctors, but not dentists.
What?
Sorry.
We're not real doctors
Well,
to the Department of Labor? I thought we
know,
were. Oh, this whole time
But my understanding is, James, the ADA and other groups are lobbying hard with the Department of Labor to get them to specifically include dentists in that exemption.
And Taylor, that's important. I know a lot of people are saying, well, I'm going to avoid that by going the unemployment route for the next 45 days or so. But the truth of the matter is that law extends to the end of the year, right? So even though
That's right.
Once we reopen, we need to be cognitive of that. And hopefully, like you said, those exceptions will play a role in us, because that can really cripple a small business if that overcomes your, all your employees are asking for that kind of time off just due to the virus. So hopefully that gets fixed. Hopefully the virus gets fixed, but tough situation to be in.
So the potential issues that are created by these acts, we've gone over a handful of them here. But it's important that we, let's see, Taylor, do you want to take the slide?
Yeah, no, and Brian's touched on, some of those potential issues as you think about this new law. Just kind of some recommendations for dentists, right? If you have an employee that says, hey, I need to take this new leave, again, verify if they're laid off or furloughed currently. If they are, you're not required to provide that leave. And then again, if you have fewer than 50 employees, I know that will apply to many dental offices, determine if one of the small business hardship exemption applies. New information coming out on this over the last week. The Department of Labor's website, they added 20 new questions and responses on a page that they've got going. We've linked to that on our website, so that's a good resource. But here's some examples, potential under the information we have, qualifying reasons. I won't read all of them, but for example, if you literally can't pay for the leave and it will cause you to shut down completely, then that could be a reason, for you to hang your hat on this small employer exemption. Another one would be the last bullet there. You won't actually have enough workers to cover the work that employee who's asking for leave was going to take off, and that work is needed for minimal operations. So whatever you do, again, understand what the exemptions currently are at that point in time, and then document them in case there's ever a claim after. You have to defend your decision.
There's some new information here. That was pretty new from yesterday, wasn't it, Taylor?
Past few days. Yeah, it's newer.
Few days. So the question every practice owner really has to answer for themselves: are you going to lay off your staff before you reopen, or are you going to furlough your staff before you open? Now, Brian, we've gone through this back and forth, and at one point we were, before April 1st, it even meant more, but now it's the 3rd, and so we can avoid that debate. But what did you decide to do for your practice, and why?
So I decided to furlough. There was a couple reasons on that. My biggest reason is when I filled out the paperwork with my employees, it specifically asked, do you have a date that you expect them back? And how could I look them in the eyes and say, no, put layoff? I just couldn't do that. And that's wasn't my intent. My intent was always to bring them back anyways. And so I followed the furlough guidance, and that was better for morale. Also, it's easier, in my opinion. Paperwork was a little easier. There was a little bit less hoops to jump through. If you lay somebody off, you got to give them their last paycheck within 24 hours. And there's a little bit more paperwork you got to go through. Plus, when you bring them back on, then you got to go through the paperwork a little bit differently. A furlough, they just show back up. We plan to be back up and running hopefully in May, and they show up and we work.
If you have any health benefits, thanks, Brian. If you have any health benefits, then by letting them go, certain states have certain rules about whether or not you have to extend that, or if they lose their PTO or whatever. Every state's different, but most of the time it goes away in time. And when you furlough, it doesn't. And so some people have chosen to do that versus furlough. But I decided to furlough too. It's also just easier. Not only is it better for morale, I know that my team is why my office is great. I hope my team does such a great job, but by the time I show up, if I'm having a bad day, that I can't screw it up. You know, my office is just, they're just good people and they work hard and everyone loves them and they're my guys, they're my team. So we want to keep it that way. We want to know that I'm here for them during this crisis too. Their jobs are back as soon as the state says we can go, and the PPP is going to let that happen. So we decided to furlough. It also makes it easier to be open kind of part-time. We have a skeleton crew right now. I don't think we're open today, but we have associates kind of rotate different through, and we have different people come at different times, and it allows us to still take care of emergencies, essential services with my current staff, all the while, because the law made a provision in unemployment, they're not completely unemployed. They can still get benefits even though they're only working 10 hours a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's this poll all about?
Sorry, this poll is just kind of showing what most general dentists or dentists decided to do. We found that it was probably 50-50. We do think probably in the end, it probably doesn't matter too much unless they're going to lose their benefits. So it ended up being about 50-50 furlough versus laying off.
Yeah, it's good. So we'll go through this real fast, but there is this new phenomenon now. You have a new employer in town, the unemployment office. This new incentive is good for our employees, but also makes it hard for us to get them to come back to work. And it's going to go for 4 months. Many of them will be making more than they were when they were working for you with the extra $600 per week. Lindsey Graham called this a loophole, and he said the governors have got to figure it out and fix it just a couple days ago. This will put pressure, if it's not resolved, on dentists to increase your wages in order to compete against the federal government's employment quote unquote offer. It really is an offer. I remember when I first started so many years ago, I used to pay $8 an hour for assistants. You know, the marketplace changes, and when things change and more people offer, McDonald's was offering $5.15, and now McDonald's is $15 an hour. So how do you compete against someone else that's offering more? Well, you have to raise. That's the beautiful part of the market. It works both ways. There is a marketplace for talent, and you probably have to consider doing something like that to get people to come back in. Again, they'll be written off with your PPP if it's all part of your wages in the end. So let's move on from Q&A. We've got just a few more minutes. Let's talk a little bit about perspective. Understand, as dentists here in America, sometimes we get a little focused on just our communities and perhaps even just the USA. But I was recently on an HBS seminar, and there were 1,500 business leaders from all over the world, India, Ukraine, Russia, Africa. And this was a poll there was 1,500 of them, and this is what they said. 74% of everyone all over the world, of these business leaders, have had mandatory closures of their businesses. I clicked that button too. Like, this is not just happening in America, and it's not just happening to dentists and restaurants and a few others. It is happening worldwide. It's a real phenomenon. It is a crisis, but America is better prepared to recover than anywhere else. One of our friends in the Ukraine said, I don't have anything like the CARES Act in the Ukraine. All of our small businesses are just going to die. Like, this is very fortunate that your government's able to do this kind of thing. And it's the power of the dollar. I know there's going to be some inflation. That's another issue for another time. But how do you lead in a crisis? It's important as dentists, business owners, that you lead in a crisis. Here's some ideas. Resist the pressure to provide quick answers. Take your time. Remind yourself and others that you don't fully understand, that things are changing. We've done that here today a few times. Take the time to learn and study and learn and find the best people around you to give you good counsel and ideas. In the end, you've got to decide what's right and what's best for you and your teams. In a crisis, you need to remind yourself to be brutally honest. Don't sugarcoat things. It comes across unauthentic. It's not right. You've got to be brutally honest. But you also need to be providing hope. That's very rational too. Don't forget to do that. Your teams are depending on you. Your assistants, office managers, they need to see that you believe that there's a better day ahead. You've got to, if you've never validated your core values and you don't know what they are as an organization, but you probably have them floating around in your heart and your mind, it's time now to write them down and lead with your core values. One of our core purposes is to deliver peace of mind. That's why we're doing this. That's why we've spent this last 7 days becoming pseudo-experts in understanding how these acts help dentists, knowing that we want to deliver peace of mind. And we hope, with a better understanding, that we've delivered that today. What are your key commitments? Be sure to follow up on them. Be visible. Hold weekly Zoom meetings with your teams. Make sure they know that you care for them. Be truthful. Seek first to understand. Focus your teams on serving other people. It's amazing when you start living your life when you're not the focus of it, how much happier you feel and a greater sense of peace you feel. Someone once said, if you're tired with your lot in life, build a service station on it. I think there's a lot of truth there. Lead your teams this way so they're focused on building other people, including your patients.
Yeah, James, I want to jump in on that with the patients. Don't forget those people. That's what we're all in this all for, is to take care of our patients. I know that a lot of different dentists have come up with different strategies about how they're going to take care of their patients, and that's great. Think outside the box. How are you going to do it? But the one thing that I would recommend, and I know that we feel strongly about on this panel, is that we're available to those patients. Now, we know that states have mandated we can't do certain things, and some of us are locked down completely. Some of us are more open than others. But do what you can to help those patients. I know in my office, we're taking emergencies, we're seeing them, we're helping them. And as they come in through the door and we help them in their emergency need, every one of them have been so grateful that we've been able to reach out to them and help them in this time. They'll remember this. It kind of goes along with what you're saying with this leadership stuff. They'll remember that you were a great leader, that although the world was kind of falling apart around us, we were still there and we still helped them as a patient and a doctor relationship.
I think you make a great point, Brian, that we're open for emergencies. Many of our offices have closed. We did this poll and 20% of the dentists that were on 1,000 voted have actually closed their offices. 80% were open. We're highly encouraging all of you to follow the ADA guidelines and open your practice for emergency services. We got a phone call. There were 9. The guy said, "Hey, I've called 9 different people, and you're the only dentist that's open. I have a tooth that hurts. Can I come in?" And we said, "Sure, come on in. We're the cleanest office in town. There's a smell of Lysol in here. We'll open the door for you. Come on in. You will not get sick. We know how to treat this, and we'll treat you, and we'll help you." It's an awfully important time, and people remember what you do. This is an opportunity for you to even build your practice. With all the patients we have coming in for emergencies, Brian, I mean, we're going to be a lot better ready to go and a lot better positioned than those that have their office closed down. Well, what we hope you've learned in the last hour is an understanding of the SBA loan options, what the benefits of these 2 acts are for your employees, and then giving you concrete ideas on how to manage your staff during this time until you reopen. We invite you to do these things today. Create a thoughtful action plan. Host an all-staff meeting with Zoom to discuss your employee plans and these benefits with your team right away, tonight, if possible. Apply for your unemployment if you're eligible, and most are. Decide which SBA loans best fit your needs and pick one, and then apply for it. Gather the documentation needed for the PPP loan and apply for that one today if you feel like that's right for you. Contact your SBA lender or broker and prep. This says for tomorrow, but prep for the applications now. Thank you so much. We really appreciate help letting us to serve you today, and we hope that what we said today has been helpful. Brian, is there anything else you want to add?
The one last thing that I would say is that keep your cash flow going by keep collecting that from the insurance company. I know that I use eAssist, and they've helped me keep my cash flow going. I'm still getting checks. That should help you as much as you can. So you can visit dentalbilling.com, and we can help you out there if you need to.
We'll keep everything updated. Whatever breaks, whatever news we have, new insights we have on these, how it can help deliver peace of mind, we'll make sure it's there. We appreciate the opportunity to serve, and thanks, Benco and team, for giving us a shot to share these ideas with your audience.
You guys did an amazing job. So much information, like that's incredible. And you know, there's so many dentists out there that need this stuff, and I think coming from your perspective was just amazing. So thank you so much. Now I want to ask, so I think there's like 80 questions. Will you guys follow up on those to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered?
Yeah, you bet. It might take us the weekend. I think we have about 1,000 questions we're following up on, right, Brian? We're working, but yeah, Sarah will take those and we'll get to them. We'll respond. We'll make sure that we get your questions answered the best we can.
And
Well,
you guys can also email sba@eassist.me, and that'll go to our panelists as well.
Fantastic. So
And hopefully the government doesn't change those answers, because they've done that to us a little bit this week.
well, I was getting ready to say that. So I'm sure I would love to team up with you again. I mean, it was really big. I mean, we had 580 dentists on here. So I know that there's a lot out there that want help. Now, I was going to ask you another quick question. Do they have to be a part of eAssist to get help from you guys?
No, not at all. Yeah, not at all. We're helping everyone, customers and non-customers alike. We're helping people fill out their applications. We're giving them guidance, and they're just calling us up asking. We're neighbors helping neighbors. The spirit to serve, it's one of our core values. It's what we do. Happy to serve any way we can.
That is so sweet. So awesome. That's awesome. So thank you so much for that. And I'm hoping that we can again bring you back maybe in a couple of weeks when things are changing, because like you said, yesterday what was going on is completely different from what's happening today. So we definitely want to stay in touch. So again,
We'd love to come back.
Love that. We'll make sure that happens. And then anyone that has any questions on their CEs, just remember it takes about 30 days to get those CEs to you, but they will come through. And again, if you had any questions, I see now your questions are up to 93. So you are going to be busy this weekend. So thank you so much. And you guys have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.